difficult and uncooperative people. So what possible conversation could be missing with difficult and uncooperative people that would have them be difficult and uncooperative with you? You know, there are people in the world for whom they're not difficult or uncooperative. Just with you and the people you hang out with.
One could be an understanding conversation, so if the person is just dictated to and never really gets to contribute their own ideas to problem solving, then they could check out.
That'd be great. So one place to look is in the nature of an understanding conversation. Really, is there a dialogue there, or is this pretty much, this is what I want you to do, this is how it should be done, this is all that kind of stuff, and there's no listening for that? You all know when you're in those circumstances, at some point you stop. You stop. And if I've been mistreated in some way along the line, that just adds more fuel. So it could well be there. Where else do you think there's a conversation missing that has people be uncooperative?
Closure conversation. Ask, I understand there's a problem here. What is it? Do you want to talk about it? Is there anything I've done?
Yeah, that's a great one. So one of the recommended strategy, not a recommended strategy. There's something for which they're unacknowledged and unappreciated. Something's been done. And it's not that you've necessarily done that. It's that you haven't differentiated yourself from that. You're just another one to be treated that way. I had a manager in one of my classes who had to deal with a woman who had a very bad reputation in marketing. And she had a project in which she had to work with this woman in marketing, and everybody was, oh, too bad you got to work with her. You know, this was one of the bad people. And she said, what am I going to do? And so we talked about it, and the coaching I gave her at the time was, have a closure conversation in which you acknowledge that you understand that she has that reputation and that you're guilty of having contributed to it. And you apologize for having contributed to the reputation by gossiping about her. And that you promise you're not going to be doing that anymore, unless, of course, you're not promising that, in which case you wouldn't make that promise. And that you're actually interested in building a working relationship and that you appreciate all the stuff that she's done. And I mean really appreciate it. So she made up some version of that conversation for herself, and she had it with the woman. And the woman said, you know, you're the first person that's ever interacted with me like that. And they worked really well on this project together. And what was fascinating to me was when the student went back to her part of the organization and told people that she was working successfully with this woman, they said, well, lucky you. It was all personality kind of stuff. You know, well, you two must click. You know, Brian and Mark, they just get along really well. Drew and Brian, it's oil and water. No, that's not all personality. It actually can be handled in a conversation. Now, does that happen every time? No. But I can tell you, in dealing with difficult and uncooperative people, the closure aspect, what have I done, how did I contribute, you know, those kinds of things, makes a huge difference with them. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to be difficult and uncooperative, but it's your access to dealing with difficult and uncooperative people.
So you made a clear point of saying difficult and uncooperative people when dealing with myself. Mm-hmm. I run into a situation where members on my new team are considered difficult or uncooperative people by the sales team.
Yes. Now we've got teams who are teams.
How do I facilitate getting that closure conversation between the offended parties and the difficult person?
Well, is it having any effect on performance?
According to the sales team, of course.
Yeah, but I'd want to see, I'd actually want to see that, because part of the issue and this goes back to the stuff we talked about building relationship, part of the issue is difficult and uncooperative people are ones to whom we have low affinity, but they can be highly productive people.
Okay, so drive it to, if there is a.
You know, now, people do use affinity as a justification for not keeping their agreements, right? And that's why I asked, does it start having an effect? So the sales guys start using the dislike for the other people as for why they're not going to, who is it, sales, and who's the other one?
Support, sales.
Support engine. So one of them uses the fact that we don't like those guys as a justification for not keeping their agreements, and then it's affecting performance. But that's why I ask, you got to decide what's the nature of what you're interested in first. You can build affinity that doesn't build agreement keeping. Agreement keeping builds affinity. If you have people, because look at most of the stuff you're looking at, all the problems that we went, lateness, poor quality work, lack of teamwork, all those are about people's honoring and keeping their agreements, which becomes a source of frustration. At work, that becomes a real major issue. Then the gossiping and all that kind of stuff, that's, you know, a different issue. Does that help, Brian?